Hello, everybody. This is John Foubert, and this week we're going to talk about gender and gender identity development. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, particularly the one on sexuality, what you heard me say is that there are many different words out there with double meanings, with unclear meanings, with different people using different operational definitions that can kind of make it hard to figure out what we mean. So it's important to operationally define what you mean by different terms like sex, gender, sexual development, gender identity development, gender itself, those sorts of things. So if you tend to rely more on textbook definitions, sex tends to refer to either the intimate behavior between people or their biological makeup of being male or female. And there are other texts which can also give you other ideas about what it means to be man, woman, male, female, transgender, transsexual, any number of things in there, masculine, feminine, those sorts of things. So we'll get into that this week. Let me give you a little bit of a brief overview. One of the definitions of gender identity that's quoted by Nancy Evans and some of her colleagues is this: in most cases, one's gender identity, or sense of self as male, female, or in between, is fixed in childhood and perhaps intensified in early adolescence before students enter college. So that definition of gender identity, one of the things it tells us is one's sense of self of being either male or female is usually worked out before they get to a college campus. So often you may have a student who comes in who appears or is biologically of one sex and says that they believe they're really the other, and that's who they are as a person inside. And so one of the challenges that creates for some colleges and universities is how do we house such students, what accommodations are reasonable to make, those sorts of things. So lots of those issues are coming up. An issue of transgender, again from Evans' text, she notes, for the small percentage of the population whom gender identity does not align with biological sex, that is, a female who does not identify as being a woman, or a male who does not identify as being a man, some may identify as transgender. So they tend to live differently than the gender roles expressed for them and encompass a very wide variety of groups: cross-dressers, transsexuals, intersex, drag queens, and the like. So certainly many different definitions of gender identity, transgender, and how that is conceptualized. And I've included another little short video from the internet this week that will go over the definition of some of these terms according to some, particularly from a postmodernist worldview. One of the early terms on gender and gender identity came from a scholar named Sandra Bem, and I commend her to you as a scholar to look into her work. She, right around the time she was beginning her work, there was a pretty firm distinction between sex biologically and gender, which she looked at as more the masculine or feminine traits that individuals have that encompass their personality. And someone could be high on masculine and low on feminine traits, whether they're male or female. They could be high on feminine and low on masculine traits, whether they're male or female, and they could be high on both. And in that case, Bem called them androgynous. They could be low on both, and in that case, Bem called them undifferentiated. And lots of research has been done with her scales, and I think it's a very interesting line of research. I did my master's thesis on it, so have a special feeling about the work that she did that was foundational in the study of sex, gender, and how they intersect. Now, one of the things that I think you need to come to terms with as you conceptualize all these issues of sex and gender and be reading for and thinking in your own mind, how are you going to make sense of them, is what is it that makes a person a man? What is it that makes a person a woman? Is that the same as what makes someone male or female? And a couple of thought exercises for you, regardless of where you're coming from before entering this discussion. The first one I would recommend that you just think about is, if you were to have to construct an argument that someone who's born biologically male is a man, and someone who's born biologically female is a woman, how would you construct that argument? And then another thought exercise, if you were to construct an argument that it doesn't matter how you're born biologically and how gender was assigned to you at birth, being a man or woman is really a subjective internal experience, and only the individual knows if they really are a man or a woman. So think through both of those, because I think as we generate different logical arguments about things, it can help us come to terms with where we stand on them. I, of course, encourage you to consider research and writings that are out there on this issue, and come to your own well-informed perspective on your understanding of this complex topic. So let's have a great week, and I'll look forward to a great discussion.